We have a result from
Yeah.
our game 3 between
We
the
do.
Hawks and the Bucks. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I do. And if I seemed a little bit distracted earlier, it's because Trae Young went down with an ankle injury.
No.
He was able to bounce back and he returned, but it wasn't enough. As the Milwaukee Bucks win 113-102, a big game by Chris Middleton. I'm trying to find how many points he had. Just give me one moment. Because he really, when I was watching this game before he hopping on here, he was really aggressive. So I mean, it's just these things where he's hot and he's cold, he's hot and he's cold. It's just kind of frustrating watching Chris Middleton because I know he has the talent. And it looks
Thankfully,
like
he's got Giannis as a pretty
Yeah.
steady star right next to him.
It's true, but if he's like super consistent all the time, I mean, that's what makes him dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And so he had 38 points. He had 11 rebounds. And then let me try to find the assists. He had 7 assists. Really dominant performance. Giannis played well too. 33 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. So a huge win for the Milwaukee Bucks. Going over the stats here, Trae Young.
First game in Atlanta.
Yeah.
First game in Atlanta. So the Bucks have taken back home court advantage by winning this game.
Trae Young had 35 points despite the ankle problems there. And he's basically stepped on a ref's foot. So it was like a flukish thing. He was basically walking out of bounds. The ref's right there. He stepped on the ref's foot, and then his ankle twisted. And you can see Trae Young he was pissed, to say the least. He's very upset. So I think overall, I wanted to ask you because I heard this with both our former guests, JJ Buck on the opening drive, and he had Isabel on the show. If you remember her. And they were discussing Trae Young in terms of his ceiling, and also heard this, on a lot of top sports talk radio and just the shows you see out there. The ceiling for Trae Young, and not necessarily this season. I mean, it's tough. It's first time there facing the Bucks, who are very deep, very stacked, but. With Trae Young, it almost seems like, okay, he's the hot flavor of the month, and let's forget Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry's not in the playoffs. The Warriors have experienced their trials and tribulations, and now here comes a new hot kid on the block here. Overall, with Trae Young, do you think he's being overrated based on this performance? And what I mean by that, I think he's a star in this league. I like Trae Young a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's kind of getting a little bit overboard. People saying like he has a higher ceiling in the playoffs than Steph Curry. It's just kind of
that's nuts.
Yeah. And Max, I mean, I want to be honest, Max Kellerman made that point. And I understand what he was saying with Steph in the playoffs, but his performance is still pretty solid in the playoffs and the finals, even though LeBron maybe outplayed him, or even Kevin Durant. Steph Curry was still pretty good. So, and it doesn't. So just because he's like third best doesn't mean Trae Young's better than Steph Curry. So, and not even in the same league as Steph Curry, at least in terms of like his accolades and accomplishments. So, I guess what I ask you, Matt, like, do you think there might be kind of like this thing with Trae Young in terms of either it's going to be, hey, this guy's just unbelievable, or if he has a bad shooting night, he's just going to be getting killed because, on that same sports talk show with JJ and Isabel, there's a caller there saying, Trae Young's overrated. What's the big deal with this guy? Like in 1 year, we're not even talking about this dude. It just seems like you guys have very polarizing opinions with Trae Young. What do you think?
Well, first and foremost, he's great for the league in general because he is so polarizing like that.
For sure.
Because you can have this opinion that his numbers are better in the playoffs than in the regular season, which is true. And you're correct about that. And you can have an opinion that Trae Young is overrated. They've got an easy matchup against the Knicks in the first round. That was a very easy 4 seed in comparison to other 4 seeds you see, etc. And you're not necessarily wrong to have that opinion as well. One thing I'll say that we as NBA fans suffer from, and I think it's more prominent now maybe than ever with how quickly we get information, is recency bias. And so I would caution people, like the other comparisons that I've heard that that made me really pump the brakes on this Trae Young thing. So I do think, first and foremost, like, his star has ascended majorly. There's going to be more eyes on Trae Young. I would say more national broadcast games for the Atlanta Hawks next year.
Agreed.
Because of Trae Young's success this year. So first and foremost, that has to be said. Credit where credit's due. I think he's been amazing in the playoffs. But I've also heard people, not only the Steph Curry comparisons, which their games are very different. So I think the undersized thing, that's similar, but their games are very, very different. Like, Trae Young will never be the shooter that Steph Curry is. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that right off the bat.
That's true.
But the other one that I heard was Iverson. Like, Iverson's run with Philadelphia in 2000 to then be eliminated by the Lakers in the finals. I still don't have Trae Young quite at that level yet as AI. AI was so influential for the game. I mean, I don't know exactly where his place right now is, and I kind of want to wait to form an opinion about that. I think getting to the Eastern Conference Finals right now as this Atlanta Hawks team and as this team is formed, yes, they're deep, but he really is the clear star of this team. I do think that's super impressive. I mean, especially in a year where we had the Nets, who were heavily favored to go to the finals. Now, the Bucks took care of them, of course. And then we had the Sixers, who were, I feel, the secondary favorites to go to the finals from the East. And the Hawks are the team that took out that team. And maybe have, I mean, there's still tons of discussion about what's going to happen with Ben Simmons. So
that's true.
The Hawks are the ones that ultimately may have been the final straw to break the camel's back, so to speak, on the Philadelphia 76ers. So I do think a lot of credit is due. I just don't know where to place Trae Young right now, but it's not Steph Curry and it's not Allen Iverson. I'm sorry, but I got to pump the brakes on that noise.
I agree. And I think to compare him to Allen Iverson is premature because of how early Trae Young's career is. But I do like his aggressiveness and his tenacity. And if he's consistent, I think the Allen Iverson comparison is warranted. Now, I think it goes to the accolades. So, 10 years from now, I think we can compare, or even 5 years from now, we can kind of go, okay, stat for stat and see where they're at. But certainly that swagger, that's very attractive to a lot of players, and I think the majority of players don't really have that in terms of trash talking. You kind of see it if they're provoked, but not necessarily like just automatically going at somebody. And I think Trae Young has that. And I think he's wonderful. I enjoy him tremendously. He's entertaining. So I'm always down for that. And I hope I hope this run is not any kind of some miracle run or a fluke. And I don't think it is. I think kind of resembles Devin Booker in the bubble, like everybody was saying. Okay, and Devin Booker is a great player before the bubble, but what I mean. He kind of blew up there, right? People kind of knew. Okay, now we know Devin Booker. So
some of it may be out of Trae Young's hands, though. I mean, if the Nets are healthy next year, et cetera, some of that may be out of his hands. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, it's true. One more thing I want to mention, and I'm done. Just the Bucks. This is a huge win for them.
Mm-hmm.
If they happen to win the title, this could be a coming of age for this team, because we've seen them crumble under pressure, and even watching the game tonight, just seeing the Atlanta crowd just chant, count the 10 for Giannis, trying to distract him at the free throw line. It's a situation in which, Giannis still hit the free throws, even though they did that. Seeing this team overcome adversity, that's what you want to see from a title team. And I think for the Bucks, even though I think if they happen to win the title, I think they're going to get really hated on just because, they're going to say about the Nets. And then, of course, they'll make a lot of the media will make excuses for like the Lakers or the Clippers or whatever. This would be a coming of age for this Milwaukee Bucks team. So, I'm impressed. This is an impressive victory because this is a very tight game. Things weren't going right, and they had to overcome a lot of things with that crowd. So it's impressive. So I'm impressed with the Bucks with this victory.
And it felt to me like game 2. I mean, you can't always, in modern day NBA, with the 3-pointer being what it is, you can't always count on blowouts as sending a message in a particular series. Like teams are talented enough, especially from beyond the arc, that they can come back right away and blow you out the next game if your shot's just a little bit off from the 3-point line. But it did kind of feel like also that game 2 was maybe a realization from the Bucks that, hey, we are bigger and more physical than you guys. Like, we have Giannis who can steamroll anyone you throw in front of him. I'm sorry, Atlanta, but that is the reality. Like, if Giannis has a full head of steam going towards the hoop, Atlanta doesn't really have someone who can stop him consistently, at least.
Yeah.
So I think that was a little bit of a flex from the Hawks there, and to keep applying that pressure in game 2, I think that kind of sent a message. They had me a little bit worried, this game being tied at halftime, this game 3, but still, just kind of put a bow on this, I am still liking my pick of the Bucks in 6. I believe you agreed with me on that pick, Justin. How are you feeling about that? And then we can wrap whenever you're ready.
Yeah, feel pretty good. Just, you're right, from a matchup standpoint, I mean, no one's going to be able to stop Giannis. And with Chris Middleton, it's the same thing with him. Like, just from a physical matchup, I mean, they just don't have the players to stack up to the Bucks. And I like their mental toughness, and I think they can, wrap this up in 6 games, barring just some mental breakdowns. I think that's going to be their Achilles heel if they just let Trae Young and the crowd get to them. So we'll see.